It's Monday, and that so happens to be the day that I like to talk about monsters. Hello, and welcome to Monster Mondays. I am Geoff Arbuckle, co-host of the podcast Film Seizure, that you can catch each Wednesday morning at filmseizure.com or at a number of podcast providers online. So let's go back to the Chicago branch of the Independent News Services and check in with our favorite reporter, Carl Kolchak. This time around, Darren McGavin's Kolchak will be going up against an out-of-this-world monster of the week. In the past, we've seen Kolchak deal with a vampire who makes his way through the buffet that is the Vegas Strip. Then, after being chased out of Vegas, Kolchak landed in Seattle, where he confronted a strangler who has been killing exotic dancers and basically draining them of blood. Now, this time it wasn't a vampire, but a guy who is creating an elixir from that blood to keep himself alive for 21 years before having to do all of this all over again. And that was just Kolchak's 2 TV movies. When he got his very own series for the 1974-75 television season, we found him going up against a surprisingly spry and still alive Jack the Ripper. We then followed that up with Kolchak discovering a grandmother who devises a revenge plot for her grandson's death by using good old voodoo to raise the grandson as a zombie to carry out her vengeance. So now, let's get back to this weekly adventure where I'm sure Kolchak will get under the skin of his editor, Vincenzo, and get on the bad side of some Chicago cop bigwigs or something. Now, we join this third episode ominously titled, They Have Been, They Are, They Will Be, with Kolchak saying this story would become not just the biggest story of his life, but of everyone's lives on this planet. He fought hard to get it released just because he wanted to know, or he wanted people to know what they should be prepared for if this ever happened again. The day starts at the zoo with a cheetah kind of expecting her daily meal, but it not coming, and apparently something looks like it attacked that cheetah. In addition, Kolchak is also excited to attend Game 1 of the World Series between the Chicago Cubs and the Boston Red Sox. I feel like that was an inside joke because at the time that this came out, neither of those teams had won a World Series in a very long time. But regardless, he gets a ticket to the game, but Vincenzo offers Kolchak some info about how this happens to be the second day in a row of a big cat going missing, as well as other animals having been found dead at the zoo in the previous week. So unable to resist a bizarre story, Kolchak has to go check things out. And he hears about a break-in at a store, a electronics store, over the police radio. When he gets there, he, as well as several of the cops in the standoff, get blown around by an incredibly strong force that no one can see. It's almost like they're being tossed around in the wind or something. Now, inside the store, there were a couple of pallets that had 2 tons of lead ingots that suddenly disappear before everyone's eyes. Now, the cops kick Kolchak out because, of course, he's asking too many questions about that very strange series of events, and the cops get visited by a foursome of guys in suits that seem to start showing up every now and then during the course of this episode, and they just basically try to get rid of Kolchak. So, there's really nothing more to talk about in this story is how it's going to go down. The typical stuff where they get upset with Kolchak for asking those questions. Now, at the zoo, Kolchak finds the bars of the missing cheetah, or of the dead cheetah's cage, completely destroyed. And he discovers a not small piece of sticky substance that kind of looks like a piece of asphalt. And it appears that there are other people around town complaining about the sticky stuff that have shown up elsewhere. And speaking of all those zoo animals that have died recently, well, they all died of heart attacks, even the cheetah. But Kolchak goes to interview a guy who called into a radio station about this stinky, sticky asphalt stuff that was dumped into his lawn. This guy was played by Dick Van Patten, who was all over TV and movies in the late 70s and early 80s. It's kind of fun to see him here. But he tells Kolchak that his neighbor got his stereo stolen right out of his house when he was still inside it using the stereo. Also, across the street, another neighbor had 5 of her cats suddenly die. The guy thinks that this is all due to rising crime rates in this part of town. He's a little bit of a, he's a little bit paranoid about this sort of stuff. But elsewhere, we do meet a petty thief trying to find refuge after ripping off a lady's purse, and ends up in a condemned building that he finds all this electronic stuff inside, and he thinks he's found the mother lode that he can go off and pawn or sell or whatever. But again, he runs right into the same unseen force that attacked the cheetah earlier in the episode. Now, Kolchak talks to a lab person who worked at the zoo and discovers that the black goopy stuff contained 3 curious substances: acetone, hydrochloric acid, and bone marrow. And what's interesting about this is that there is no place on Earth where these 3 things would naturally occur in this way. But whatever killed the animals appeared to have eaten the animals' bone marrow right out of their body. And the lab lady doing this work for Kolchak assumes that after doing so, the attacker threw up, and that's why you have this acetone, acidic bone marrow mixture that appears almost like asphalt. So now there are 2 things that Kolchak is hunting down: an attacker who sucks the bone marrow right out of his victims, and what on earth he could possibly want with 2 tons of lead. Worse, Kolchak's pictures that he took at the electronics store with the lead going missing and everything were collected by that group of well-dressed men that seemingly know an awful lot about a lot of things and a lot of people. They are taking Kolchak's pictures and his tape that talks about the missing marrow in one of the dead people's autopsy recordings from earlier. There was actually the guard of that electronics shop. But they are basically squashing this story by any means necessary. Now, while trying to track down a UFO believer who created his own language using numbers and mathematics, Kolchak finds the guy's body, and he hears the man's last words on his recording that he was trying to send to the stars with his homemade equipment. Realizing that the electromagnetic pulse that took place at the electronics shop that also happened to shut down every single person in that area's watch, this might actually lead him like a compass to whoever created that pulse. And he goes to a planetarium following his compass, and it seems as though Kolchak is going to be attacked too by the unseen force, but after he snaps some pictures, suddenly he's left alone. He doesn't get hurt, he doesn't get his marrow sucked out, anything like that. And Kolchak begins to think about what went on and realizes that whatever it is that attacked him was going through a bunch of star maps. They were, using the planetarium to try to find something in particular in star charts. And, and he deduces that whatever this creature is, he exists on the part of the light spectrum that we cannot see. Which him doing that is kind of interesting because there is an offhanded comment at the earlier part of the episode about him using infrared film as opposed to regular film, which was only kind of blown over, but it had something to do with him taking the pictures of that disappearing lead. So he brought that back, realizing that, you know what? That's why you sometimes use infrared film, or you use different things that can look at the parts of the light spectrum that we can't normally see. But after thinking about it some more, he realizes he was actually wrong about his light spectrum theory. What actually repelled the creature was it was actually the battery recharger for his flash bulb. That was, I think he said, a nickel palladium alloy that emitted a sound that, while it's unpleasant to us, probably hurt the creature that was attacking him. And unable to get the police to believe him, Kolchak follows his compass to a clearing in a park where he finds the creature's spacecraft. And this is apparently what was built with all of the stuff that had gone missing and was stolen. Now, once again, Kolchak is able to fend off this blustery, invisible creature with his camera's flash's rechargeable battery, and then he witnesses the ship disappearing. And now it's time to talk about those three things that I like about this third episode of Kolchak the Night Stalker. They have been, they are, they will be. First of all, I really do like that title. It's kind of eerie. And that really kind of leads to my first like. But in a lot of ways, all three of these likes are kind of interconnected by a loose idea. This first one is that, like I said, this is an eerier episode than what we've seen before. It's obviously one of those episodes of a TV show that gets produced on a smaller budget than some of the other episodes. There's no makeup or special effects needed for this creature for this time around. This is all told from the point of view that we cannot see anything. We could be in the same room with the creature and not know it until it's too late and it attacks and sucks out our bone marrow. It exemplifies how sometimes we don't need to see the terror to feel it. This kind of episode needs the writing to be spot on, and it is well written because it is chilling that you have no idea what the monster looks like. You have no idea what it would look like when it attacks. You have no idea how to protect yourself against it. Even Kolchak lucked into being able to defend himself from being sucked dry. And that's pretty good suspense and creepiness. The second like for this episode is kind of connected to that. And because you cannot see the monster or really understand what's going on when the monster attacks, you kind of start to see some peculiarities in the details of these few days in which Kolchak is following these leads and clues about these dead animals, these missing electronics, the lead, the dead people that are found. You have animals having heart attacks, the sticky, almost asphalt goo being left behind, people having their stereo stolen from them while they are listening to that very stereo and having no idea what happened. But there are other things that happen too that are weird and just kind of funny. Even people Kolchak knows are doing weird things, or we learn things about them that are just simply peculiar. For example, apparently, sometimes his editor Vincenzo has dinner in his office after everyone else has left, and it's high-class French gourmet stuff. That can, and does in this instance, include brain in the main course. Monique Marmelstein, who we met in a previous episode, doesn't file her taxes, and that's used against her by the men in black who come to collect Kolchak's evidence about aliens being involved. Hell, those guys even tell Vincenzo that this all might involve UFOs, but Kolchak, usually very quick to badger a detail all the way to the point that he gets himself in trouble, kind of drops that idea somewhat quickly after realizing that Vincenzo mentioned UFOs despite Kolchak saying nothing of the kind. There are just these little intricacies that come up in this episode because we're not actually seeing the monster do normal monster stuff of the week. So we're mostly following Kolchak around on his usual trek through a few days, and that means he knows and talks to a lot of weirdos. That whole thing about Vincenzo having, the dinner and then Kolchak coming back and Vincenzo saying, I don't want another UFO story, and Kolchak not really badgering that all the way to the end really kind of tells you that people are kind of off their usual game in this episode, and I think it's purposeful too. Now finally, because of how effective the writing is, because we can't see the alien and how it kind of makes the episode off kilter and strange, this is one of the few episodes in which Kolchak doesn't defeat the monster. Previously, he shut down a vampire, a Jack the Ripper, a zombie, and so on, but here he has no way to get anyone to own up what they experienced. He has no defense outside of the accidental discovery of the battery recharger against the creature. The creature leaves and he has no evidence of it ever existing. He can tell his story and hope someone believes him, but that's it. He's not even questioned by the men in black. He just says that they haven't come to him yet. The episode just kind of ends. He has no closure on this story like the others that we've seen, that we've been with him for. It's kind of a neat ending. He knows there's extraterrestrial life. He knows how it attacks and what it repels it. He knows it took the lead and the electronics that to build this spaceship, but that's it. He can't prove anything. All he can do is tell a story that is not unlike the kooky stories being told at the UFO believers meeting that he sat in on to get some info about something in the case. It shows that sometimes Kolchak isn't going to kill a monster every week. Sometimes he just only plays witness to the strange. So when you really get right down to it, the strangeness of the episode is the overarching thing that I like about it. However, the intricate detail leads it, from it being a monster we can't see or follow like in other stories in this series, to it ending with a peculiar kind of hollow victory for our buddy Carl Kolchak, all ties into this eerie hour of television that kind of leaves you a little unsettled at the end. That wraps up this week's Monster Mondays. You can catch new episodes of Monster Mondays each Monday at filmseizure.com. Don't forget to follow Film Seizure at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to Film Seizure to get both the Wednesday morning Film Seizure podcast and the Monday afternoon Monster Mondays at your favorite podcast providers as well as YouTube. You can also check out my website, bmovieanima.com, to read new articles every Friday morning. Join me next time as we deal with some more guys from outer space as I look at the 1957 comic science fiction classic Invasion of the Saucermen. Until next week, stay spooky.